Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're going to be laser focused on a question, well, a question many of you probably grapple with, especially when you're scaling up. When is bringing in a marketing agency the right call, and when might it actually lead you down the wrong path?
Yeah, it's a big one. We've got a really interesting perspective on this from Harsh Makwana. He's the founder of Minute Creative.
That's right. He wrote this article, Why I Don't Trust Agencies and What You Should Do Instead, back on March 25th, 2025. And honestly, it throws a wrench in the usual way of thinking about agencies.
It definitely challenges the status quo.
So our mission for this deep dive is basically to unpack Makwana's argument. Like, what are the potential, maybe hidden dangers of leaning too heavily on agencies for your growth? And maybe more importantly, what are some other ways, alternative paths to think about?
Exactly. The goal is to give you some solid takeaways, things you can actually use to, fuel your growth without falling into some of those common traps he talks about.
And what really makes Makwana's take interesting, I think, is his background, right?
Totally. It stands out because he's seen the agency world from, well, pretty much every angle. He's hired them as a client, he's been the client, and he even ran his own agency for a while.
So he's got that inside track.
Yeah, that kind of 360-degree view gives his point some real weight.
It does. And one of his big initial critiques is about where agencies tend to focus their energy. He argues most of them are really heavy on tactics. The drill SEO, paid ads, churning out social content, CRO tweaks.
The usual checklist.
And on the surface, I mean, those all sound pretty crucial, don't they? Like things you should be doing.
They absolutely sound essential. And look, nobody's saying these tactics don't matter at all, but Makwana's core point, it's that just focusing on the tactics without a really solid strategy underneath. It's
Yeah.
like trying to win a race with a flashy car, but you haven't actually figured out the route.
Okay.
He gives some really good concrete examples too. Like you could be pouring tons of cash into Google Ads, right? But if your basic message, what you offer, who it's for, if that's not clear or compelling, well, you're just burning money.
Right. Setting it on fire, basically.
Pretty much. Or maybe you're posting great stuff on LinkedIn all the time. But if your positioning is fuzzy, like who is your ideal customer, why should they care about you specifically, then those posts just kind of fall flat. No real engagement.
And website redesigns, too.
Yeah, even that. A beautiful new website looks amazing.
Yeah.
But it won't magically convert visitors if you haven't first done the hard work of really understanding and defining your ideal customer profile, your ICP.
Okay, let's dig into that a bit more. So Makwana is saying, forget the tactics for a second. The foundation needs to be solid first. So instead of jumping straight into SEO or ads, what's he saying you need to do before all that? What's step one?
He's really adamant about fixing your positioning first, like non-negotiable first step. It's all about getting super clear on exactly who you serve best. What are their biggest headaches? Why should they pick your solution, not someone else's? And what makes you genuinely different?
So nailing that core message.
Precisely. That foundational clarity, he says, has to come before you even think about specific marketing or sales activities. Once that positioning is rock solid, then you can start building out what he calls a GTM engine.
A GTM engine.
Yeah, like a go-to-market engine, a sort of unified strategic system for generating demand consistently rather than just, throwing a bunch of separate tactics at the wall and hoping something sticks.
That makes a lot of sense. It's like building a house you wouldn't put the roof on before the walls are up, right?
Exactly. Lay the foundation first.
Okay. Now, another thing Makwana points a finger at is the whole monthly retainer model that so many agencies use. What's his main beef with that?
Well, it really boils down to accountability, or maybe the potential lack of it. His argument is that the retainer setup often incentivizes the agency to just keep their monthly income steady rather than focusing purely on the client's actual business results.
Ah, okay. So they get paid for doing stuff, not necessarily for achieving outcomes.
Pretty much. They get paid for the deliverables, writing X blog posts, managing Y ad campaigns, doing Z audits. But there's often this gap, this disconnect between just doing those activities and hitting the actual business goals the client cares about.
Like making more sales.
Right. He gives examples like maybe you're paying a hefty retainer for content creation. Okay, fine. But is that content actually bringing in qualified leads? Is it driving sales? If not, what's the real ROI?
Good question.
Or you could be pouring money into SEO month after month, but if you're not seeing a real jump in, say, high-intent demo requests or closed deals, well, what are you paying for?
Activity, not results.
Exactly. Or that website refresh we mentioned looks great, maybe. But did it actually move the needle on your conversion rates? Did it bring in more business? Those are the questions he thinks aren't always asked or answered with retainers.
Okay, so the risk is you're essentially paying for effort, for checking boxes, but not necessarily for bottom line impact. So what's his recommended alternative? How should you structure things instead?
He really pushes for partnering with teams, whether they're agencies or consultants or whoever, that are truly invested in and measured by those tangible business outcomes.
Like what specifically?
Things like growth in your sales pipeline, the actual number of qualified demo bookings, not just any booking,
Mhm.
and ultimately, of course, revenue, hard dollars,
So aligning incentives much more closely.
precisely. And his advice is pretty blunt, demand proof. Before you sign any long-term deal, make them show you evidence that they've actually driven the specific results you care about for similar businesses. Don't just take their word for it.
That feels like a really critical filter for anyone out there listening who's thinking about hiring an agency. Dig into that track record on the metrics that matter to you.
Definitely. See how their success is tied to your success.
Now, Makwana also brings up something else, something pretty common with agencies, the fact that they often work across a huge range of different industries. What's his take on that?
Yeah, he sees that wide focus as a potential major weakness, actually. Even though agencies often sell it as a strength, we have broad experience.
Right, we're versatile.
Exactly. But his argument is, think about it. How can an agency juggling clients in SaaS and e-commerce and coaching and
Yeah.
local businesses, how can they possibly get a really deep, nuanced understanding of your specific market, your specific customer, your specific go-to-market needs?
It's tough to be an expert in everything.
It really is. I mean, the way a SaaS company grows is often fundamentally different from how an online t-shirt shop grows or how a local plumber finds clients.
Completely different worlds sometimes. So what are the consequences then for a business that hires an agency that maybe doesn't truly get their specific sector?
Well, the biggest risk is you just end up with generic cookie-cutter strategies,
Hmm.
stuff that isn't really tailored to how growth actually happens in your world.
Like applying e-commerce tactics to a sauce business, maybe?
Could be. He specifically mentions SaaS, saying a generalist agency might just lack that deep feel for the unique challenges, the specific levers you need to pull to scale a SaaS company effectively.
And there's wasted time too, presumably.
Oh, huge amounts. He
Yeah.
highlights the whole onboarding mess. You can spend weeks, maybe months, just educating the agency on your business, your market, your customers, only to find out down the line that they don't really get it.
Frustrating.
Very. They don't speak your language. They don't truly grasp the customer's pain points. They don't understand the nuances of your model. It's a lot of wasted effort.
Okay, so if that broad generalist agency approach has these potential pitfalls, what's the alternative Makwana suggests people look for instead?
He strongly, strongly recommends prioritizing specialists. So that could be smaller boutique agencies or maybe individual consultants who really focus hard on a specific industry like SaaS, for example, or even a niche within that industry.
Depth over breadth.
Exactly. The idea is these specialists have just spent way more time developing a much deeper, more practical understanding of the market dynamics in that space. They know the common ICPs, they know the GTM strategies that actually work there because they've seen them work or fail repeatedly.
So they hit the ground running, ideally.
That's the goal. He really emphasizes finding a partner who, speak your language right away. Someone who gets the specific challenges you're facing right now, like maybe the specific hurdles that, say, Series A or Series B SaaS founders hit when they're trying to scale.
That really clicks. It's finding someone with that domain expertise, not just general marketing knowledge.
So, okay, as we kind of bring this together, can you recap the main alternative strategies Makwana puts forward for scaling, especially for SaaS, but maybe applicable elsewhere too, without just defaulting to those potentially iffy generalist agency models?
Sure. It boils down to a few core ideas that shift the focus more inward, or at least towards more strategic partnerships. First, like we hammered home, prioritize fixing that core positioning, get the message right, make it resonate, make it different. That's job one.
Okay.
Second, focus on proactively building demand, not just capturing whatever demand happens to be out there already. Be strategic, create opportunities.
Got it. Less reactive.
Right. Third, he talks about leveraging founder-led content, using the founder's voice, their expertise, their authenticity, because people often connect with and trust that more deeply, builds authority.
Makes sense,
Yeah.
especially early on. Yeah. Fourth, concentrate on building repeatable, scalable GTM systems. things that work over the long haul, rather than constantly chasing the next shiny tactic that might fizzle out.
System over tactics.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And finally, as we just discussed, actively seek out and engage with specialists, people, or teams who have that deep, proven understanding of your specific type of business in your industry.
So putting it all together, the big message seems to be, yeah, agencies look like an easy button for growth, but Harsh Mokhana's perspective really pushes us to maybe question that assumption, to look closer at the potential downsides and focus more on strategy, on foundations, and on actual measurable outcomes.
Mm-hmm. To call for a more deliberate approach.
It really makes you think, doesn't it, for everyone listening?
Yeah.
Are your current growth efforts really built on that solid foundation, that clear positioning, that cohesive GTM strategy? Or are you maybe relying a bit too much on just a collection of separate tactics?
It's a good gut check.
Yeah. And here's maybe a final thought to chew on. If that traditional agency model does have limitations, as Mokhana suggests, what other kinds of creative partnerships or specialized help or even internal strategies could you explore to get that sustainable growth you're looking for?
Definitely something to mull over. It encourages you to look beyond the obvious path, maybe find something that fits your specific situation even better.